Okay, so now this is where we start the bivariate transfer pairwise. Okay. So here you have 231 different combinations, so you have to choose which ones you are going with. So let's decode the code here. So the function is analyze.coherency. This should be your data frame, so CP2, and my pair is going to be the two variables that you want to compare. So let's see the variables again. CP2. Okay. So, okay, so South Africa does that. And then what ZA.df. So what you are saying is that you want to check the coherency between the variables. So you want to check the correlation between the stock market index and the exchange rate. You want to check how strongly they are correlated, whether one leads the other, whether they are in phase or they are out of phase. So that's what you want to check. Okay. This should also take a little bit of time than the univariate ones. So let's decompose and see. And it takes a while. So if your PC is not strong, it can take longer. The composition is done. So there are a number of things that we need to look at here. There are different plots that we can get from the decomposition. We have the power levels, we have the coherence levels, and we have the averages, all of that. We have phase differences. What we need is the coherences. So if you can, we have said that this is our choice, coherence plots, because we agreed in the theoretical part that the coherence plot is the one that is scale indifferent, is the one that is much like the correlation we know. But let's look at the others and we'll come back. We come to that one. So wavelet coherence.image, so WC.image. The transformation is ct.rr, which is here. And the main here is just our names. So we can say JSC and then ZA.
Yeah.
That's okay. So everything else is pretty much by choice. Show.date, we need that. Significance.arrow 0.5, we are doing 95% confidence. Period lab, this is up to you, can change it. Time lab, you can change it. Okay. So we can make the plots, all things being equal, to work. You see the plot. We can go ahead and interpret this, but this is not the one that we really want. We want the one that gives us the coherence. So we can just forget about this one and look at the next one. Okay, so what is the next one? We have WP. This will give us the same thing. Okay, I'm going to, so watch here. Color.key equal to I. And here we have which image equal to WP. So if you come down here, I've given you different things. Select WC coherence series, select WP power, select WT transform. So here, this is basically the same as the one we have plotted. I'm giving you the different things in case you want to try out. Realize this is the same, right? Exactly the same as the previous one. And if you follow, you see that when you read papers, nobody presents this. Have you seen the papers? They never present this one because the literature, we don't need this for the purpose of our study. The one we need is the coherence. I've written here our choice. So which image WC wavelet coherence? That's the one we want. So I can, okay. So let's see how it goes. Perfect. See that this is a bit different. So let's make it big. See if it will be better. Yeah. Okay. So let's see if we can analyze your data. So let's see. How do I see? Is it interesting or it's not interesting? Okay. So I would suggest from scale 2 to 16, you write a blanket statement for that, except that you may have to take note of this part. In 2020, early 2020, scale about 6 to 16, I don't think you can ignore this. Yeah, you can't. So you need to talk about it. So let's start from there. So what we can talk about actually. So let's see. There's a general pattern here in the whole of this data. You see the pattern?
Yes.
Yeah. So it is the actual out of phase. Out of phase, and X is leading. So the market is leading. If we are not sure, we can go and check. Okay, so let's check what it shows. It's out of phase and X is lead. No, actually it's Y that's leading. Okay, so we are here. True? Yeah, so it is out of phase. It means that the exchange rate and the stock market are moving in the opposite direction, and the exchange rate is leading the stock market. So that's one. So here the X South Africa is X and ZA is Y. So when you are naming it in the plot, you have to make sure you name it the same way. If I now put ZA first and JSC second, I'm making wrong interpretation. So you have to take note of that. Okay. So generally that's the thing. Okay, so here, between scale 6 and 16, we realize that the market, they are out of phase and the Y is leading, which is the exchange rate. Okay. Then we go to, we can look at so we can look at this one. This is basically the same thing. Out of phase, ZA is exchange rate is leading. Okay. This is, what do you think this is? See, this is similar to, so you realize that the whole of this area is similar.
Yeah.
So you see that now X is leading and then Y is lagging, but they're out of phase. The stock market is leading and the exchange rate is lagging in the long term, between about 128 scale and the 256 scale, from about 2015 all the way to 2021. Yes. So compositely, you have to make a choice. Let's look at the last one at the top, the very top there.
Yeah, that's pointing to the fourth quadrant.
Yes, fourth quadrant. So it's out of phase and Y is leading. So that would be the ZA. So you have to decide. You can be independent about, if it's not clear, that's fine. Because in some of my papers, I say need no lead, no lag. Okay, so let's choose different pairs. Another pair and see.
Okay, we can do the S&P 500.
And what?
The
SP 500.
Nigeria.
Nigeria. Which one is Nigeria? The Nigeria.df. Can see it. Why?
Say again.
Why? What's the? Okay, let's try that one. Nigeria and S&P. Okay, the composition is done. You can just look at this briefly, but that's not what you're interested in. You don't need this one. You also don't need this one. What we need is our coherence plot, which is here. So let me change the names. This is SP 500 and Niger. Okay, that's fine. This is interesting. So the relationship between the Nigerian market and the SP 500 is really scarce. Like it almost never exists. You see it?
Yeah.
Very sparse. Okay. The only part that we can really talk about is these small patches. So this is, let's see. Let me use my annotate. Let me do this. Yes, green is fine. So you got this one here. No, I think green is the wrong color because we are blue should do. So here and here. Let me trace to, oh, my drawing is not good. Let me trace to just like 64 and just a little above it, so like here. So they are in phase and what? Nigeria is leading. So in phase and Nigeria is leading, and that is just on the fringes of the long term. I mean, medium term. We are just getting out of the medium term between 20 what?
20,
about
20 and
maybe after the first quarter of 2020 all the way to about middle of 2021. Okay, that's agreeable. Then the other thing that we can talk about is this one here and here. So here, this is actually fourth quadrant, right?
yes.
So between 2015 and about middle of 2017, the Nigerian stock market and the S&P 500 are moving in the opposite directions, and Nigeria is leading. X is leading. Okay, that makes sense. S&P 500 is rather leading in the long term. So, any other pair that these are the data, the variables. What pair would you want to see the relationship? How about BRVM? Let's look at something about BRVM. Huh? Is it BVRM or I think it's BRVM?
BVRM.
Okay, that's fine. So, which one are we choosing? FTSC.df, right? FTSC.df with what? You can check with the S&P or you can check with the Okay, let's transform. Do you see the mistake that I've done? Can you see? I repeated the DFs here. Yes, so now it should work now. So you see, maybe your variables are, you don't have to really pay every one of them. You can select it. So, okay, transformation is done. Then let's go to our coherence. It was S&P 500, no, FTSC, FTSC, and S&P 500. Okay, first of all, do you see some of the coherences that are insignificant outside of the cone of influence? Okay, so I see a lot of in-phase, a lot of movement in the same direction. Yes, which makes sense because they are both very high, the advanced markets. Okay, so we can cut out all the way from scale 2 to 16. Do you agree? And write one blanket description for them. A mixture of sparse coherencies, both in phase and out of phase, in the short term, scale 2 to 16. For daily data, 2 to 16 is enough to be a short term, so less than a month. Okay. Then we can start looking at the concentrated scales. Okay, so let's start from here. 2020 will always give us some highlights. Okay, so look at this one. Let me add this one. Like this. So in phase, I see, so this part, for example, when you do multivariate, you realize that you divorce bivariate. Anyway, so this one I think is more of Y leading. Y leading. Y is the S&P 500. Yeah, for this one. How about this? Here, I think Y is still leading. Yeah, Y is still leading. So S&P 500 is leading the FTSE. Okay, so very early 2020, beginning of the medium term. Okay, from about, so here we are still in the short term here. Okay, so with time, if you read my papers, you realize that in the early papers, when I'm interpreting the data, I wrote a lot, interpreting the plots. As I went along, I began to summarize them more and more. So you get to that. Okay, so this is a little bit of the short term, but we go here in the medium term. Okay, so FTSE is still leading, but when we come here, we can still look at that as deep in the medium term, between the end of 2019 and up to the, let's say, maybe the third quarter of 2020. We see that there's a measure of leading here. So if you divide it into two, realize that here, FTSE is leading, but here, the S&P, no. Which one is first? S&P 500 is second. FTS is the first variable. So here we realize that the FTSE is lagging S&P 500.
Yeah.
But here, S&P 500 is leading the FTSE. Okay, so it's a tight contest, if you like. When we come here, it's clear that the FTSE is leading the S&P 500 in phase. When you come here, it switches. The FTSE is now lagging the S&P 500. But here in the long term, I do not see a phase difference. There's no leading nor lagging. Okay. So a lot of activity is from the medium term going around 2020 to 2021. And then in the long term, we have between the end of 2013 and about the end of the whole of 2015. So this is how we do it.